Hi guys, Pastor Janet here. I'm back to talk about that's part two of terms every writer should know. Now I'm pulling my glasses down like this so that otherwise you're going to see big circles in my eyes from the ring light. Okay, when I first became an author, I wish somebody had to tell me, you're just so excited about writing, you just start writing, and you think, oh, this is just great. You don't worry about any of the techniques that go into writing, but you must know a lot of things. So I'm trying to help people that are into writing that don't know a lot about it to understand things. Part one was we talked about plot, conflict, theme, characterization, and setting. Now today we're going to talk about part B. We're going to start with the narrative hook. Now you probably have heard, or maybe you haven't heard what a narrative hook is. It's when the person picks up your book, when they open that first page and read from the very beginning, what catches them is it's either the first sentence, the first line, the first paragraph, or maybe the first page. But you've got to catch them there, because if you don't catch them there, they're not going to buy your book. They're not going to read your book. So narrative hook is important. Learn what a narrative hook is, something exciting, that's going to catch the people when they open the book. Maybe you'll say something like, it was a murder like no other. It had never been solved. Or like my mystery, I wrote one called The Man Without a Face. And the first thing I did was when I opened it up was I talked about murders in Chicago. There was a murder on the platform. The guy pushed her in front of a train. And they asked the people to describe who the guy was. They all said, he didn't have a face. And you need a narrative hook. Okay, so first thing people are going to think, oh, well, he didn't have a face. Everybody's got a face. So how could he not have a face? So you want to read on to keep going to find out what happened. So that's a narrative hook. The next thing is dialogue. People have trouble with dialogue. Now, dialogue is a conversation between characters. Now, when you talk to people, dialogue is not just flat dialogue. They're not stick people. So when you have dialogue between characters, if you go to a party, let's put it this way, it might be easier. You see two people talking. They're talking. You don't know what they're talking about, but from the way their expressions are, the way their stance, are their arms folded, are their eyes looking off to another direction, so you get the impression this guy doesn't want to be bothered with whatever he's saying. Dialogue is more than just he was talking to a stranger and I walked up. That's not dialogue. Now, dialogue would be where you say, I noticed the two were talking. One seemed to be very concerned about something. The other, as if he didn't care. His eyes were on different parts of the room, as if he wasn't even listening. See, dialogue is more than just words. It's emotions, feelings, how's the person acting, how his stance, his attitude, how his facial expressions, all that goes into dialogue. I'm going to talk more about that later, but that's just an example. Okay, the next one is diction, how you put words together. We talked about that before. Diction, like, they have to make sense. Like Lady said, she cooked dinner for her family, her parents and the dog. Okay, we know who she cooked dinner for, but if you don't put the words together right, you could say cooking dinner for dog with family. That's not the same thing as saying she was cooking dinner for her mother and the dog. Words have to they have to be put in the right order so that they make sense to when the mind looks at them. They don't want to have to turn it around and say, I think this is what they mean, but they didn't say it. You want to know what they mean because they said it. You don't want to have to try to figure it out in your mind, the words scrambled. We talked about that. And then if somebody asks you, what's your MS? Do you know what that means? Manuscript. What's your manuscript? What's your manuscript about? So MS is manuscript. That's something, it's a simple term. You should really know that. And WIP. If they say, what's your WIP? And you look at them and say, what? WIP means your work in progress. What are you working on right now? That's what WIP means. Your work that's in progress. What you're working on. Maybe you're almost done. Maybe you just started. So make sure you know what WIP means. Work in progress, and MS manuscript. Those are simple things, because the editor he may not say, what are you writing about? He may just say, what's your MS? Or what's your WIP? So you should know what that means. And then a query letter. Now, when I first became a writer, I knew nothing about query letters. I'll be honest, nothing about the query letter. So I would just send my stuff off to different people, different. I sent them everywhere, to be honest. But you need a query letter to tell what your manuscript is about so they can A lot of publishers don't have time to go through and read everything, but in that query letter, you're giving them a hint of what the story's about, and what's going to go happening in it, and then they can tell if they want to go on and read your manuscript. The query letter gives them an idea. If not, they may send your manuscript back to you because you didn't tell them what it's about and you didn't give them any information, so they don't have time to go through and try to read and figure out. They want you to tell them in a query letter, which is like a small page of everything that's going to come around or happen in your story. So you need to know what query letter means. Now the next thing, this is the last part I'm going to make on this one here. This is a hard one. POV. Do you know what POV means? It means point of view. You have to know what point of view means because there's first person, second person, third person. Second person's not used too much, but first person, it's like you're telling a story. Like I would say, this is my life. This is how I lived it. This is what happened to me. So your first person. This is me. I'm telling the story. I'm telling the story. So you know right off the bat, this is my life. This is my story. This is how it happened, and this is what it's all about. So first person is always you. They use the words like I, we, telling the story. So you know a first person. That's an easy one. Memoirs are usually in first person. Sometimes autobiographies are in first person, unless they have somebody write it for them. It might be a little bit different. But you need to know points of view. That's first person. Second person is, I got this down here. I want to make sure I get it all right. They use such words as he, she, or it, or they to describe the characters from an outside view. But that's not used too much anymore, so I'm not going to get too much into that. But third person. Imagine that you're at a party and you're like a mind reader. The third person is like a mind reader. He's an omnipotent mind reader. That's where I put it. He sees everything that's going on. He can dip into this character's life, like you can be reading a story, and he'll say he saw her standing at the door, and he wondered what she wanted. And then he can switch all of a sudden and say, she looked at him sitting there behind the desk, not knowing that she was coming in to quit her job. He had pushed her too far to the end of her rope. So you get an idea of what's going on there. Oh, he's wondering what she wants. She wants to quit. So that's an omnipotent author. He deals in everything. He sees what everybody's doing from an outside view. But he lets you get an idea of exactly what's going on. My thing is messing up here, so just hold on just a second. Let me do this here. Okay, so he, omnipotent author. That's why I kind of like Danielle Steele did a lot of that. When I was in writing school and I had writing class, we had to pick an author that we liked, and I liked Danielle Steele because she would be telling you what one character, showing you, it says show, don't tell. She would be showing you what's going on, but you would get a chance to know what the one person is thinking as well as the other person. That's omnipotent author. And I like that because, like I said, you know what this person is thinking, like he's sitting at the desk and he sees her walk up to the door and he wonders, what does she want now? And then, he'll stand up and say, may I help you? And then she'll go back. She wanted him to help her all right. She wanted to help herself right out of this job because he had pushed her to the end of the rope. So we know what he's thinking. We know what she's thinking. That gives the author power with words. So we feel like we're kind of like the omnipotent person with the author because he's telling us everything that this person's thinking, what's happening here, and also what's happening over here. And so we know a little bit about both of the conflicts that's going on. I love that type of writing. I love omnipotent author writing because, like it says, the narrator's outside and looking in, he sees everything. He knows what everybody is doing, what everybody's thinking, and he gives you a peek into what's going on with this person, a peek into what's going on with that person, and a peek at what's going on with the other person. That's omnipotent author. That's third person. So these are ones that you should know. You should know first person. Memoirs are written in first person all the time. That's me, myself, and I. So like I started writing a book one time. I have never did finish. It was called It's My Life. So you already know it's written. It's first person. You know that first person. It's me, myself, and I. Third person is the person that's outside looking in, and he uses such words as, I'll get him here, he, she, it. Like I said, he was doing this or she was doing this, and as a result, this happened. But now you know why it happened, because you were given a little insight into the guy behind the desk who was wondering what she wanted, but you know what she wanted, even though he doesn't. So you have a little up on him, because the author has already let you see inside a little bit of what's going on with her. So it's like you get a chance to understand what everybody's going through without them knowing that you're peeking into your life. And you know everything, just like the omnipotent author. Okay, well, the author's omnipotent, but you be the omnipotent reader, because he's giving you a little hint into what's going on, so you understand the whole conflict, and you know exactly there has to be a solution somewhere. You don't know how it's going to be, but it's going to be a solution somewhere. So you need to know these. You need to know the narrative hook, how to catch your reader from the first line, sentence, or paragraph. You need to know dialogue. Dialogue is more than just putting words together. People have trouble with that. Sometimes you read a book and say he or she would. Okay, let's say Timmy went to the store. All we know is Timmy went to the store. But if you say Timmy threw his clothes on, and as he went out the door to go to the store to get his mother's groceries, he banged the door, stomped down the steps. We know now Timmy's mad. Timmy's upset. See, conversation is more than just dialogue. You have to put the emotions behind it. Or the mother could have yelled and said, Timmy, get out of bed. You need to go to school right now. So Timmy gets out of bed, and he goes and puts his clothes on, gets on his bike, so go grabs his books, bangs the door as he goes out. So we know Timmy's going to school, but Timmy's mad. He doesn't want to go to school. He doesn't even want to get up. So conversation, you have to put the emotions with it. People don't just talk plain. They don't say blah, 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 blah. No, there's facial expressions. Are they smiling? How do their eyes look? Are they looking this way, that way? They're unconcerned. Or are they just looking at the person like this one? What do you think you're doing? I'm not listening to anything you say. See, conversation, you have to watch conversation. That's a very hard thing for people to grasp, is conversation. It's facial expression, the way they're standing. Is he bending one knee? Is he shifting from foot to foot? All this is conversation, not just words. Conversation is more than words. The emotion, stance, feeling, all goes together. So you need to know that. And diction is how you put the words together to make sense. You know, you don't want to say she fed the dog to cat family. What you really mean is she fed the dog when she fed her family at the same time. People can understand it. Now, you don't want to, like I said, you don't want your mind to have to turn around and say, okay, now, what did he mean? So I think he meant that she was cooking for the family and the dog. But she said cooking, dog, and family. So that's two different things. You think, is she cooking the dog and the family? No, she's not. So your brain is going to turn around and say, oh, I think she means that she's cooking dinner for her family and the dog. That makes sense. So the word choice makes sense. And then you need to know what an MS is. What is it? Manuscript. Your manuscript. And what is a WIP? What you're working on, your work in progress. Like my work in progress right now is Abigail's Journey to Faith. That's my next novel. So if anybody asks me, what's your WIP? I said, Abigail's Journey to Faith. So you need to know that. And a query letter, don't just send your stuff anywhere and just don't say what it is and don't tell the publisher or anything about the story. They want a query letter that tells them what this is about. Give them a basic idea so they know if they want to read it, because they get a lot of manuscripts and they're not sure they have time to read them all. So you got to tell them something that's going to make them want to stop and read your manuscript. So those are terms that you need to know. Now, I'm going to come back with something else, but I'm not right now. But I'm working on other things for writers, because there's so much in writing. Like I said, you'll never stop learning. So when you're a writer, don't think you ever grasp it all, because you never will. I know I haven't. I still see things and I say, oh, okay, I should have did this, I should have did that. You're always going to be learning. That's what writing is. You're always going to be learning. So just remember that. It's one of the best things you can train yourself to. Just if you can just stay positive and realize that you're going to be doing this. If this is what your dream is, you're going to be doing it for the rest of the time that you want to be a writer. Or if this is your career, like it's mine, I'm a writer, body, soul, spirit. That's just who I am. I love to write, and I just do writing all the time. I try to write every day, a word, a line, a sentence, a paragraph. But always remember, that I'm always learning, just like you will always be learning. So there's more phrases. I'm going to come back with other stuff that I wish somebody had taught me, but these are main things that you need to know. You need to know that point of view, first, second, and third. Like I said, second's not used too much, but first and third are used a lot. First, me, myself, and I. Third person, omnipotent, author, looking, showing everything. You see everything, hears everything, and sometimes he'll switch back and forth, or she'll switch back and forth, and let you see what that person is thinking. That's behind the desk, and the person that's standing at the door, what she's thinking. So you know already it's going to be a confrontation. You already know that. You get a hint. So he shows you. It's like being a mind reader, kind of sense sometimes. Mind reader. I love Danielle Steele. She did a lot of that. That's where I first got I really ran into it. She'd say one thing about this person, and then she'd say something else about, and I said, oh, he doesn't, or she doesn't know that that's what he's thinking. So now I understand. I understand what the conflict is, So anyway, so this is what I wanted to show you today. It's part 2. So I hope it helps. I try to make it easy, because in writing school, to be honest, a lot of stuff they said I didn't comprehend because I was new to the craft. I didn't understand a lot of what they were saying. And some teachers, they knew it, but they couldn't convey it. They couldn't get it to you. They were very high up with their, terminology and stuff like that. And I just didn't get it. So I'd have to go and look things up and things like that. But I don't want you to have to do that. You can still look it up, of course. Internet's wide. You can just go through and search for whatever you want. But I'm just trying to rubber down to the road so you get a basic understanding of what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm glad that I could do this for you today. I don't have any clothes to show you today. I'm just dressed casually today. I'm just dressed casually. I'm just, just relaxing. So I will see you later with more stuff on writing, and I wish you guys happy writing. Bye-bye now.